What's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to walk you through a few do's and don'ts of deadlifting. These are things that I see in videos or I see in person, and they're common mistakes that people make, mostly mechanical mistakes, and I find that when people start to get up to 80%, 85% plus of their max, they're failing on the deadlift or they're having to grind through certain sticking points. So I'm going to show you a few mechanical adjustments you can make that are going to significantly improve your performance in the deadlift movement. Prior to doing that, I'm going to warm up with some squats here, nothing crazy, just going to get some movement, get things circulating, and then we're going to get into the deadlift stuff, so stay tuned. Are done, we're going to get into the deadlift, and I'm going to show you 3 common mistakes people make, and they're mechanical mistakes, and often it prevents them from getting PRs, from really locking out the weight nice and cleanly. A lot of times they're grinding through because they have these mechanical problems. So the first tip I'd like to talk about right now is you're not supposed to squat the weight. So what you'll see often when people do a deadlift is they'll come up to the bar and you'll find that they basically squat right down to the very lowest point they can, almost to the point where their hips are. The general rule is you want to keep your hips lower than your shoulders. So if you're looking at my shoulders here, you want to keep the hips lower so that you're almost on a slight angle up to your shoulders. But a lot of times people, they accentuate that angle too much. They focus too much on squatting the weight up, which is not how you're supposed to do it. Because the problem then, in a lot of cases, is that people keep their ass too low, so by the time they actually go to move the bar, their ass has traveled first a few inches before the bar actually breaks the ground. Now the objective with the deadlift is you want to stay as tight as possible so that the bar breaks the ground, or the weight breaks the ground as your ass is rising. So in order to do that, you don't want to squat the weight, you want to start off in a tight, high up position, nice and tight. You want to keep basically your chest in line with your pelvis, everything lined up, fill the core, brace, and you want to kind of shoot the hips back, come down, and from here you want to pull yourself into a tight position, but not one where you're squatting the weight, one where you feel extremely tight, and you're going to see this lock happen with the bar here. You're releasing the slack from it, right there, and you're pulling yourself into the bar, and then you're doing the movement. So you don't want to come down, start low, and then lift. Because at that point you're breaking the movement into different parts, you're losing tightness, it's just not optimal. So that's number 1, don't squat the weight. We're going to get into number 2 now, and it has to do with your feet placement, or you could also say the bar placement in relation to your body. So you want to try to keep as straight a bar path as possible. You don't want it traveling forward, you don't want it traveling backwards, you want it to go straight up. And the reason for this is because you want it to be the most efficient movement possible. When you're moving a lot of weight, if you're moving it forward or backward, you're kind of bleeding out energy in all directions as opposed to just trying to force the weight straight up. So the objective is you want to push through the ground, through your heels, and really through your whole foot, but you're kind of sitting back more on your heels, almost to the point where you're trying to pull the weight up, and even though I said don't let the bar travel back, you want to kind of pull yourself back a little bit too. And you're going to notice this when you get into position, and when you get tight into position, you're going to see that the bar and the weight actually lifts off the ground just slightly when I get into a tight position. And the reason for that is just because I'm maintaining as much tightness as possible in order to correctly perform the movement. So here I'm going to first show you what you're not supposed to do with the weight. So you don't want it too far in front of you, because then when you're lifting it, you have to bring it up, and now you have to bring it back. So you're losing energy. Now you also don't want it too close. You can see here I put it way too close. I put it almost on my shins. And now what happens there is that my knees are going to get in the way, and I have to clear my knees by moving the bar forward. So that's not a good idea either. What you want to do is keep it as straight as possible, stay as tight as possible, and you want to move the weight up, and you want to actually pull your shoulders and your chest back. So it almost, you'll see a lot of times in powerlifting meets, there's someone standing behind the deadlifter and they have their arm up because they don't want them falling back. So I'm going to show you how to correctly do the movement. So you want to go approximately the midpoint of your foot. Personally, I like to go just before the midpoint. I have long feet. So stay tight. Hips back. Pull yourself into position. And that's it. You see how I kind of came back a bit. I'm going to do it once more. We're going to get into the third tip now. And I've actually removed my tank top so that you can see my back nice and clear when I actually give you the demonstration. So this approach, a lot of people will take the method of grip and rip. Now what that means is that they stand up in a straight position, they bend straight down, and they try and rip the bar off the ground as quick as possible, and they're thinking speed, speed, speed. So this method, it's effective in terms of getting the bar off the ground quickly. But the problem is, because when people do this grip and rip method, their thoracic spine, their upper back, is typically rounded. So when they get up to the top position, when they break their knees with the bar, you're going to see a lot of cases, people are going to be like shaking with the bar, trying to lock it out. And they simply can't move it past a sticking point. Now the reason being is because their lower lumbar, their lumbar spine, is basically trying to get underneath. So imagine your back is rounded. When you get up into a top position, you got to unround and straighten up and get the hips underneath. So a lot of people can't tuck the hips under in order to lock it out. So the grip and rip method, it's okay. The problem is there's a ceiling to it. Once you reach like 85%, 90% of your max, you can't just rely on that explosiveness to get you past that sticking point and allow you to straighten out your spine so that you can lock out properly. So what I recommend doing is ditch grip and rip. Basically focus on keeping your spine straight, keeping your thoracic spine straight, keeping your lumbar spine straight. By keeping your thoracic spine straight, you're retracting your shoulder blades back. You're keeping your head not like shooting it up, but you're keeping it like relatively neutral. That way you can really engage your traps and your lats and all those big upper back muscles. So you're going to stay really tight, and you're going to try and move the bar off the ground in a consistent, fluid motion without any sticking points. So it may break the ground a little bit slower than grip and rip, but you're going to be able to lock it out. So that's the, the pros and cons of it. Also, I find with the grip and rip method, you're more prone to getting an injury. It's more risky. And I'm going to show you both examples here. You can decide for yourself which method is best for you. I highly recommend just keeping it strong, steady, consistent, and getting tight, and then moving the weight that way, as opposed to trying to rip it off the ground as quick as possible, because you're not going to lock it out. It's going to be a tricky time trying to lock it out. So let's check out these examples. Here I'm going to show you the first example of grip and rip technique. You're going to notice my upper back, my thoracic spine is going to be rounded, and I'm going to rip the bar off the ground quickly. And I may not have difficulty with the lockout because the weight is relatively light, but you will notice a difference between this and the other approach. That's grip and rip. Not very effective. So now I'm going to show you the approach of keeping your back straight, keeping the thoracic and the lumbar spine straight, getting in a good position, and keeping a consistent bar path. Now that's the difference. In my opinion, I prefer the second approach. The back is straighter, more consistent, and I find that I fail more when I do grip and rip. So Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Does grip and grip work for you? Are you currently doing it? Have you considered switching? Let me know. And thanks for watching this tutorial. Hope it helped you. I'm going to do some reps, and we'll call it a day.